the administrators on
Ultimately,
campus?
we did.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, we had to
Okay.
go to them, and because we were part of the Fraternal Council as well, we made it clear, guys, this is offensive. Old South Week has got to go.
How did they respond?
They didn't like it, but it was clear to them that because not only did the fraternities band together, but by then, we're talking 1973, that was kind of 74, 75. We had probably a couple of thousand African Americans on campus.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality then was, guys, you don't stop it, all hell would break loose. And it will not just be the fraternities and sororities, because we were the leaders on campus. And not only did we stop it, people who were non-Greek were there as well, who said, stop it.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
Were you involved in any way in getting black cheerleaders, and you had mentioned the homecoming queen, and
No, we had black cheerleaders when I was here. Roxy Gray was one of my good friends. Roxy was a cheerleader. Actually, Roxy tried to convince me to run for cheerleader. I said, Roxy, I'm not the cheerleading kind, okay? Roxy was a cheerleader. Tina was a cheerleader. So we had African American cheerleaders, and that was kind of a non-issue to us because, let's see.
and you were here when Harvey Martin was on the football team, and
Yeah, see,
school won the national championship.
Yeah, I came here. I had a situation at Sykes Hall that I wanted to move. I wanted to move because I didn't like the games that were going on over there, and so I can remember the house parent called me and wanted to talk, and I was already angry at her, and I said, no ma'am, I will not come to you because I don't want to talk to you. You want to talk to me, you know where my room is, come to my room. Mm-hmm. And she refused. So, well, I won't come. So, well, I won't talk.
Mm-hmm.
And so she called the assistant housing director, and he called me. He said, Derryle, I hear you have a problem. I said, yeah. You want to talk? Yeah, I'll talk to you. And so I went and told him. I said, look, it's a nice dorm. I love it. The dorm mother was named Mrs. Crater. I said, I like Mrs. Crater, but Mrs. Crater wants to be something to me that I don't want her to be. Everybody called her Mother Crater. Mm-hmm. She said, Derryle, you call me Mother Crater. No, ma'am, you are not my mother. I will call you Mrs. Crater. Mm-hmm. And I just told him, I don't want to do that. I'm not home. This is not home. Mm-hmm. It's a dorm. I don't feel like she's the mother figure for me. All right, I don't want to do that. So if she respects me, I'll respect her. So he said, what's the resolution? I said, I want to move. I said, number one, I don't like the fact that there are 9 African Americans in the dorm and 7 of us are clustered together. Mm-hmm. Duh.
Yeah.
And I'm as different as day and night from those guys from in there. They put them together because you thought that I would have some similarity to these guys. Just because our skin color. No, we don't. I don't like some of them. Why do I need to be there with them? So he told me, he promised me that he would allow me to move. And so I packed up, went home. And when I came back the next semester in January, my uncle brought me back. I went immediately to housing. He said, all right, you told me you were going to move. And so they talked and he said, well, Derryle, you'll have to move back to Sykes until we find you a spot. Mm-hmm. And I said, nope, won't do that because you told me you would find me a spot now. So here's the deal. I'll give you our phone number. You have to call me and I'll come back, but I will not spend another night there. I just don't want to. I don't want to and I won't. And so I looked at my uncle. He said, what do you want to do? So you can take me home. I won't stay. Mm-hmm. And so they found a room for me. They hunted around and said, hold on. And they found a room and it was heaven. I ended up moving to a room with a football player who was Dwight White's backup. It's a picture of Dwight White. I had a room with Louis Freeman. Louis Freeman he's a distinguished alum. He's the first African-American chief pilot of any major airlines. And a guy named Alex Sidney. And so the 4 black guys. I'm like, yeah! And that's where I moved. And I lived with them. And that's how I got to know Dwight White, Harvey, and all the football players because my roommate was a football He was the state heavyweight Golden Glove champion of Texas.
Wow.
And I tell people I've had a fight. I've only had 2 fights in my whole life, and the last one was 7th grade, and both fights were with my best friend who lived down the street from me. He said, I can't fight, but I can box your butt down. You do not want to fight me because I can box, because he taught me how to box. So that's how I knew the football players and Harvey and Dwight, and became good friends of theirs because my roommate was a football player. Yeah.
During your time, you said that one of the homecoming queen elections brought in a black woman, and you were telling us off tape that that wasn't well received by the white community.
No, not at all. It had to be 1973. It was my senior year, and actually her name was Derryle.
This is a continuation of the interview with Mr. Derryle Peace on December 8th, 2010 at the Alumni building on the campus of Texas A&M University Commerce. And my name is Jim Conrad, and Dr. Shannon Carter's here, and we've got some questions, some more questions for you.
Did you want to kick off?
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about some of your professors here on campus. Did you have any interaction with Dean Truax?
Dean Truax was the dean of the college that I came through. Not a lot of interaction, never took a class, but was well aware of his presence, particularly my master's degree was in counseling. And so well aware of his presence, had some exchanges with him periodically, but not a lot.
What about Harold Murphy?
Had a class, unfortunately or fortunately, I had a class with Dr. Murphy. Actually, saw him not long ago. Someone graduated. Is that correct? He's still alive, right? Is that Dr. Murphy that lives here? Who lives here in Commerce?
What department?
He would have been in the counseling department. He was one of my instructors. Was actually the counseling department, I think across the board, was filled with characters. Dr. Murphy had a class with Dr. Robert Gold, had a couple of classes with him. There was a lady there also, Dr. Judy Geer. I think her last name was Geer. But yeah, most of the people in the counseling department I took classes under. So,
what led you to a master's in counseling in particular? You said your bachelor's is in sociology?
Right. I have a dual major, psych, sociology. The sociology piece, I have a social work certificate. That was before we offered a bachelor's in social work. You had to be a sociology major, then you took a series of 4 other courses, and you had to do a practicum. And so I had essentially a bachelor's in social work, even though that's not what the degree said. My intent, and I am a living witness that's coincidences when God chooses to remain anonymous. I was going to graduate a semester early. I was to graduate in December of 73. On time, I would have graduated in 74. But when I went to file for graduation, I was 2 classes short. I needed 2 electives. I was a senior, I was a member, I was a officer of the fraternity, and I lived in the fraternity house. So my intent was to sit out a semester, make application to UTA, and get a master's in social work. Good friend of mine, who's fraternity brother, he's actually, it's Dr. Kenneth Martin. He is the vice president of Navarro College. We were good friends. He was getting his